Hey YouTube. Oh gosh, that was so weird. Okay. So I guess I wanted this video to be about something that I've been like just thinking about since I've been here, but like haven't really had like a chance to put into words. I'm sure maybe some of you are curious about it. So I titled this video "Studying Abroad in Hong Kong with an Afro." So actually, to talk about race in a way, from my perspective. So if you don't know, oh actually, as you can see right now, I actually have twists in. But also, before I had twists, you can see my previous video to see what my hair looks like. But yeah, if you don't know, I'm actually African American. I have albinism. So that means that I am born with a lack of pigment in my skin, hair, and eyes. And yeah, so I feel like because of that, it kind of pains me to admit this, is just that sometimes I think people may treat me a bit differently than if my skin was darker. And like I think most people aren't really conscious of albinism as much. Like I feel like most people don't really know what it is, because I always get questions like, what am I, you know? Because I guess people just aren't really familiar with it. But anyway, so what I wanted to talk about was basically yeah, sitting about with an afro. So like my first month and a half while I was here, I felt like um, I didn't feel like I was treated any differently. I didn't think anybody was rude to me. There was this one instance actually, during my second week I think, where we went on a tour, and the tour guide, talks to me and she's like, "You have albinism, right?" or something. So she was just like, but she said to me that she was Chinese, and she said to me that most Chinese people don't know about that, and they would just assume that I'm white, which is interesting. How that's like one of the things she had to tell me. But yeah, so she told me that, and I'm like, oh, okay. Even though like my hair is curly, obviously, well, kinky, I yeah, I was like, okay, I was a bit surprised about that. That she would, be so out forth about it. Because I've noticed here, like, people are like very afraid of like confrontation in a way. Like nobody, you know, is like really forward with me. Like even with my hair like this and and twists, people like approach me, right? But like some people might say something to me, but they're not actually like Asian. Like, they're always like foreigners who will say something to me about my hair, but no Asian person. I've not met an Asian person who's actually asked me about my hair or what these twists are and how stuff like that. And so I don't know. I think most Asian people don't really like to be nosy. Don't want to appear to be nosy in a way, like directly nosy. Because I did notice that while walking around with these braids in, well, with these twists in, that this group of Asian people, right? Like they were talking to each other, right, in Mandarin or whatever, and like they were like making gestures towards my hair, like pointing, and then someone was just mad, like staring at me, like just really intensely staring at me for a good 5-7 minutes. I didn't know what to do, so I just avoided eye contact, and I was just standing there, and I'm like, oh wow, this is my first time. Somebody just stared at me, like, mm, 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 like that. Anyway, so that's kind of been my experience. But when I've talked to other African American, well, not African Americans, but just Africans, because I'm half Nigerian, and so I have Nigerian family members, and then also, like, I've been to the unofficial African district in Chungking Mansion, and so when I've talked to them about their experience in Hong Kong, they mentioned that there was a lot of racism, like with the police officers, just assuming that they're illegal and performing all these raids, tearing apart their lives and their businesses because of that. And so that was a bit hard to hear. And one of my cousin's partners, talked about when he came to Hong Kong, he noticed a lot of racism too, just from like the elderly people, just being rude to him. And so it makes me think then, like, maybe my experience might have been different if if my skin wasn't as, if it had more pigment, is what I'm trying to say. So that may be one thing to consider, is that maybe the older generation might be a bit, I don't know, not used to seeing people who look different, of different races, and so they might tend to come off as rude. And then police officers might, assume that you're an illegal and you want to check your paperwork if you're walking down the streets. That's something to consider when you're coming to visit here. My mom is actually going to come and visit me next week, so I'm going to be curious to see how she's treated as well. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that. But I noticed that definitely the students here, like the younger generation, don't seem to have any issues with race. I have to say though, I haven't like seen many black students at HKBU. I don't think I've run into any black students at all. So that's kind of like a bit of a culture shock in a way for me. But I guess back in Iowa though, we don't have many black students in Iowa either. I'm usually sometimes, like in my supply chain management classes, I'm usually like the only black student in that class. And so, and it's kind of the same thing here, I suppose, but usually I do see more black faces walking around. But yeah, it's not very diverse in that sense. Like, I think out of all the international students, like most of the international students who came to HKBU when we had orientation were either white, Asian, or Hispanic, and maybe there was some Middle Eastern, very few Middle Eastern, but I haven't seen anybody who was an international student studying abroad at HKBU from Africa. I haven't seen any of them, or even just black Americans or black Europeans or whatever. I haven't seen any. So if you're not, so I guess that's something to also consider if you want to, so that's something else to consider. If you're thinking about studying abroad here as an African American, is that you'll definitely not see that many African Americans or like black Westerners here. If you do want to like see African culture, go to Chungking Mansion. You can have like African food there. You'll see more Africans there. So that's, I don't know. So in case, I just think that some people, I know that some people may find it hard to adjust because of that. I actually adjusted pretty well to this because I'm half Nigerian. So I always go to like Chungking Mansion for like either for Nigerian / Ghanaian food, because I really know that culture well. That's what my mother raised me in, and so I feel really comfortable. Like I feel more at home in Hong Kong in that way, because I can get a taste of African food. I can get that African banter and that music that's always playing, and I just really enjoy going there to eat my egusi soup, and my jollof rice is really nice. So I think I go there maybe like once a week or once every 2 weeks to eat some Nigerian food. And that's something I could never do back in Iowa. Like I always felt kind of out of place because I grew up in the African culture, Nigerian culture, and so I couldn't really relate to Black American culture as much back in Iowa, and there was just no place to get any African food, Western African food, and so I kind of, my first 2 years of college felt really isolating like that. Like I didn't get to eat any jollof rice until I made it myself, and that was very interesting for me to learn how to make jollof rice after all these years, because I was just so used to my mom making it for me. So that was a bit rough for me because I just, I really missed that. So I think that's been one comfort since I've been in Hong Kong that's really helped me adjust more to life here. So anyway, that's just my experience that I wanted to share with you guys about race in Hong Kong, about what it might be like to be black here. And these are all just snippets of stories. Like, I don't want anyone to feel like if they're black, they shouldn't come to Hong Kong, because just because there are a few bad apples, just because there are a few bad apples, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't come. You know, there are always going to be people who are racist anywhere you go, who will always think that, you know, who will always judge you by your color, and that's not, you're not gonna, that's not something that's just unique to America. But I just want you to know that the experience of coming here, I think, will outweigh those negatives that you might face while you're here. And so I really hope that no one feels discouraged by this video. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Beverly_Hills_95, and have a great night.